This video is about installing the Mazda 6 cruise control system on my NB2. But even before I could finish it, one of the subscribers had done that already. David Kompan from Slovakia posted his results in the Miata DIY group, called my guide a game changer, and clearly appreciates my work. It is for guys like him that I make these videos, and he inspires me to continue. David and a friend both managed to find the required parts locally, spending less than €100. They also tested the vehicle speed signal from the instrument cluster and used a laptop to capture that signal while driving. There is a link to a short video in the description below. In my opinion, the Mazda 6 system could also be called a game changer. Any car using a throttle cable and a compatible vehicle speed signal should be able to use this system. In fact, you could be a game changer too by subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything and it would help me a lot, so don't hesitate and do that now. While David and his friend were installing the system, I was still finalizing my preparations. This also included a solution to communicate the status of the system in different colors using a single indicator in the instrument cluster. The hold light, comparable to overdrive off, is the only available position in the instrument cluster on cars with a manual transmission. Therefore, it is the obvious choice. The early North American NBs had a cruise lens above the fuel gauge. When I found such a lens, I used a 12mm drill bit to remove the hold lens from the gauge face and then position the cruise lens behind the hole. Buying and importing a complete instrument cluster from North America only for this lens is not a good idea. That is why I am working together with a friend to find an alternative. What you can see here is the result we achieved so far, but it's still a work in progress. I had already prepared the wiring for the installation, but that was before we found a solution for the status indicator in yellow and green. Therefore, I made some changes to the wiring. This leaves us with two options for the wiring. You can either wire it with the cruise main signal or without it. Without the cruise main signal, you can simply use the cruise set signal and connect it with pin 1E on the instrument cluster. It will then use the hold light in the MX-5 NB. When combining the cruise main signal and the cruise set signal with a multicolor LED, you will use a separate connector and then bypass the connectors of the instrument cluster. In previous videos we got to the point where the audio controls and the interior lights are functional on the Mazda 6 steering wheel, so that is our starting point. The bracket that I'm using now also has the rubber parts from the original bracket. It was designed to avoid undesired vibrations in the car. The actuator has to be mounted on top of this bracket before I can use and install the bracket on the car. This is the wiring that I have prepared for the installation. If we start at the unit, you recognize the connector. That cable will go towards the firewall. I used the original grommet from the firewall, made a hole in it so the cable can pass through. Then it will split into 4 directions. The first direction is towards the clutch switch. I will use those connectors as a plug-in. Then the second stream is towards the clock spring. For the switches on the steering wheel. Third path is the brake switch, and I will use a round GM brake switch, a new one. And then the last direction is towards the instrument cluster. And here we have the power wire and the vehicle speed signal, and I've made an additional connection over here for the status indicator bulb. I will use a LED that will be used with different colors. This is our Mazda 6 cruise control actuator and module. I've mounted it on a specially designed bracket, and I will show you in a minute where that will go. You'll see the cable. The cable is running all the way to the throttle body. So we have the throttle valve over here with the throttle cable connected here, the bottom one, and that comes from a bracket over here. Originally we had this black bracket with room for a second wire, but that is the wire that will go to the throttle valve for a kick down mechanism on automatic transmission cars. We will not be using that. Instead, I've made a bracket to host the actuator cable. The actuator cable will be connected to the throttle cable, and I will use one of these type of clamps to connect the two cables. So if we look at the position of the actuator, then it depends on your personal preferences. You could, for example, mount it somewhere in this region. Then the cable length would still be fine. It would run all the way around and then go back here to the throttle valve. I've seen an example where people use a shorter cable for over here on a right-hand drive car, but I will be using it on the other side of the car where the original actuator goes. This is the position where I will be mounting the actuator, and then you can see that the cable has no particular bend before it reaches the throttle valve. And what I will also use is this hole in the firewall. This hole in the firewall is intended to host the actuator cable of the original cruise control system. It is located directly next to the throttle cable that comes from the gas pedal. So I will be using that hole to put the wiring through, and as you can see, the actuator itself is not very far away, so it's just the distance from there to that hole in the firewall that we have to bridge. I will now try to get the wiring through the firewall. Okay, that's it. It's in. We can pick up on the other side under the dashboard. So that's the hole where the wires come through the firewall and they move back towards the footwell. So here on the footwell we can see all the wires that we have put through, and I can now route them to their final destination. My next step in the process was to complete the plugins. So I've added the connectors and stuck the terminals in the right way for the clutch switch and for the brake switch. These two will come towards the clock spring, and we have some more wires over here that I've been preparing. So I've taken the pin 1C out. This will be for the meter fuse, the feed, and I've taken out the red and the green and red wire for the vehicle speed signal, so I can splice into those cables. I also hooked up some multimeter to check if my brake pedal responds correctly. So you heard the sound when I push the pedal. This is for the brake lights themselves. That is For the brake switch, this is open if the brake pedal is not depressed, and for the other signal it is closed when the brake pedal is not depressed. Before that test I had removed the original brake switch with a 17mm open end wrench and replaced it with a new switch. Which switch you choose does not really matter, as long as it has 4 pins, a normally open side and a normally closed side, and M10 by 1.25 thread. There is no need to look for the original 4-pin BR70 brake switch, although it remains an option. In these pictures you can see how the wires and connectors under the dashboard are now in place using the plug-in construction for the clutch switch and the brake switch. The connector for the clock spring still needs to be closed with a small cover and can then be plugged in on the back of the clock spring. The LED for the status indicator bypasses the instrument cluster connectors. That leaves me with only 2 wires to splice into for this complete installation. We will take power from the meter fuse, and we can find that at the black and yellow wire at connector 1, pin C, and then we splice into the vehicle speed signal on the green with red wire at connector number 2, pin L. I used to solder these type of connections, but lately I prefer to crimp the connections and then finish them with some shrink tubing. We are now at a stage where everything is wired up, so I can switch on the ignition, then press the on-off button on the steering wheel. The hold light is our cruise main light in this case. If we now press the resume switch for 3 seconds at least and then let go, you will see the hold light turn green for diagnostics, and the system can now self-test and see if something is wrong. The light doesn't turn green again, so everything's fine. Then we can switch it off. Then first press resume, then on off, hold resume for a few more seconds, and now we see the second diagnostics mode being activated, and then we can test all of the switches. I can now press on off to leave diagnostics mode, and when I now switch it on, basically we're ready for normal operation. Let's have a look at the end result. Everything in the engine bay is now back in its place. So we have our actuator over here with the wiring going through the firewall. The actuator cable is tie wrapped in 2 places on the vacuum line, basically parallel with the throttle cable, and finds its way towards the throttle body over here. And we can see the 2 cables are connected now. I can use a socket on the actuator to turn the disc and pull the cable, and when we then look at what happens at the throttle body, then we can see both cables being pulled, and this is the complete range of the actuator, so we should be good to go. All in all, I think I did a very clean install. The system works. The installation can also be reversed if needed, without leaving a mess for a new owner. Now for a bit of background regarding this project car. I own this car for about 6 or 7 months now. I picked it up in Germany. It had sat for a while with some damage on the exterior, a worn out interior and a broken engine. So this car still needs a lot of TLC. I managed to get the engine to work again. It was a timing issue only. I stripped out the interior completely. I then cleaned everything and replaced some parts using my crashed car as a donor. So the car is already looking a lot better now, but it's still not registered and road legal. So I need to work on that first before I can actually do a test drive. I have tested the system with the wheels off the ground, and it works. So I'm looking forward to getting this car on the road and doing some more modifications to it. This would be an excellent time to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot to come in future videos, for example, more details regarding how to wire the RGB LED for the status indicator, a first drive with the system in the car, and some new modifications. For now, thanks for watching MX5 Info, and I hope to see you again visiting the channel in the near future.